Replaying these Gears of War games for the first time in so many years after the announcement of Gears of War E-Day has really been a very nostalgic trip for me. On one hand, some of the things that I absolutely loved about these games when I was younger has only aged like fine wine, whereas on the other hand, some of the things aren't quite as good as the way I remember them. Maybe time just hasn't been as kind to those parts, but overall, Gears 1 and Gears 2, at least in my opinion, have remained both phenomenal games. By the way, if you haven't already, make sure you do check out our previous videos on Gears 1 and Gears 2. But with all that said, it brings us to what was my personal favorite when I was younger. However, after replaying it, I've got some thoughts. Here we are. Oh boy. Gears of War 3, a game that had teenage me in a chokehold for a very long time and refused to let go. After replaying the previous two Gears games recently, I was really looking forward to replaying the third game, as this was my personal favorite of the trilogy, and well, all good things must come to an end. However, we have all seen how the sting of a bad ending can damage the legacy of, well, pretty much anything. Now, just like with the previous two games, I'll be looking to see if this one has aged well and can stand on its own. But unlike the previous two entries, this game also has the added challenge of bringing a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. Influenced by fan response to Gears of War 2, the design decisions aimed to ensure that the game would meet a high standard set by its predecessors.
The most polished, best Gears game that Epic has ever made.
Gears of War 3, released on September 20th, 2011, was one of the most eagerly awaited titles of the year. Upon launch, it garnered widespread critical acclaim for its refined gameplay, emotionally charged narrative, and polished presentation. The game quickly achieved commercial success, solidifying the trilogy's status as one of the most significant in gaming history. It was particularly praised for its multiplayer, innovative new game modes, including expanding on the Horde mode. However, the conclusion to the storyline was a little bit controversial. The series' signature cover-based shooting mechanics were further developed in Gears of War 3. More improvements were made to the fighting system, including more responsive controls and seamless cover-to-cover transitions. The introductions of new weapons, including the Retro Lancer, which had a regular bayonet as opposed to the well-familiar chainsaw and could be used to charge into enemies, as well as the sawed-off shotgun, which had incredible devastating damage potential, but was limited to almost being useless unless at point-blank range. Also, the Hammerburst got yet another rework, and this time added a first-person perspective when aiming down the sights. And on the Locust side of new weapons, the Digger Launcher was added, which was like a grenade launcher, except it tunnels underground before popping up and exploding on its target. Very appropriate for the Locust. Gears 3 also added new executions that gave the gameplay more variations and strategic depth. Additionally, the game's AI was enhanced, which made interactions more dynamic, and on the flip side of that, could make some engagements a little bit more difficult. A major addition to Gears of War 3 was Beast Mode, which was a reimagining of the well-liked Horde mode. In Beast Mode, gamers collaborated to eliminate human forces this time, while in charge of Locust monsters. Players were able to personally witness the strengths of the Locust in this mode, which offered a new take on the warfare in this game. It was originally well-received innovation that made multiplayer experience more enjoyable and replayable. Now, just like with the previous two Gear games, I really don't want to get caught up too much in the Horde and multiplayer modes. As they are great and fine, I am here to mainly focus on the campaign and the story. So Gears of War 3 concluded the story of Marcus Phoenix, Delta Squad, and humanity's battle against the Locust Horde with an emotional, intense finale. The game focused on the final chapter of the war, where humanity was on the brink of extinction, fought not only by the Locust, but a new menace, the Lambent. As players navigated through this epic conclusion, they experienced the characters' personal struggles, with themes of loss, redemption, and sacrifice taking center stage. The journey took us through new and diverse environments, from crumbling cities to ravaged wilderness, which helped bring the world of Sarah to life in vivid detail. The war's devastation was evident in every facet of the game's design, deepening the emotional impact and drawing players into a tense, desperate atmosphere that mirrored the fight for survival. This expanded lore and rich environmental storytelling made the game's world more immersive, offering a powerful end to the trilogy. So, with all that, let's begin. Oh, and on a real quick note, for some reason, Gears of War 3 didn't name the axe like it did in the previous two games. Why? I have no idea, but they just didn't do it in this game. Okay, now let's really begin. The prologue of Gears of War 3 opens with Marcus Phoenix in captivity, surrounded by Lambert polyps. The narrative quickly shifts to a rescue mission led by Anya Stroud, reminiscent of Dominic Santiago's earlier rescue in the Jacinto maximum security prison right at the start of the very first game. Once players regain control of Marcus, they navigate the corridor that leads to a cinematic exchange between Adam Phoenix and his son. This is followed by a fierce battle against Locust forces, including boomers and a corpser. The action is interrupted by a cutscene where a King Raven is shot down by the Locust, crashing into a tower, resulting in the apparent death of Adam Phoenix. Marcus then snaps back to reality and leaves his quarters to find Dominic Santiago tending to the plants for the crew. After a short cutscene, Marcus discovers Jace, who is trying to fish out a decade-old candy bar from a vending machine. Soon after, Marcus meets up with Anya and they receive news of Prescott's impending arrival. The discussion is abruptly halted by an attack from polyps, leading to Nash's demise. Marcus is tasked with eliminating the polyps emerging from a pipe and confronting a new Lambert threat aboard the ship. As he ascends to the deck, players are treated to a cutscene that introduces the Dirge, which can mutate after taking enough damage. Next, players must fend off waves of Dirges and Lambert drones. After overcoming these foes, Marcus heads to the control tower to meet Prescott, who hands him a disc for decoding. As the Lambert invasion intensifies, Marcus decodes the disc only to find that it's completely nonsensical. He returns to Prescott's location, battles more Lambert forces, rescues Prescott, and begins the evacuation preparations. Civilians aboard the ship call out for Marcus's help to eliminate the Lambert that are blocking the Ravens from leaving. After he successfully takes down the Lambert and raises the lift, a King Raven pilot approaches him seeking assistance against the Lambert that are decimating his crew. Marcus confronts the Lambert and a massive tentacle that spawns polyps. Once he defeats the tentacle, he raises the lift to face the formidable Lambert Leviathan. The Leviathan retaliates, causing Marcus to tumble in the maintenance area, where he is ambushed by more Lambert drones. In a twist of fate, the Leviathan crushes a tentacle, which inadvertently opens a ramp for Marcus. As he climbs up, the Leviathan shifts the containers with its tentacles, forcing Marcus to dodge quickly. He then commandeers a Silverback to fight back against the Leviathan, aiming for its eyes to bring it down. After landing 3 successful hits, Cole and his team arrive with tickers, but Baird's light-hearted comment about the chaos raises some eyebrows.
Hey, I thought you'd enjoy the witty irony of Grub on Glowing Island. Yeah, fucking hilarious. You're gonna blow up the whole ship, genius.
The Leviathan's defeat climaxes in a blinding flash, leading to a flashback and a transition into the next chapter. In Hanover, Cole and his squad are on a mission to scavenge supplies at a stranded outpost. As they gather weapons and navigate through the remains of the stranded bodies, they encounter a hostile stranded who reluctantly permits them access from more outposts. In a nearby park, Cole discovers more weapons and faces a relentless waves of attack from Lambert, including dirges and drones. After clearing the area, they find a mechanical loader that can be used to gather and secure food supplies, which are then transported by a King Raven helicopter. After securing the supplies, Cole's team pushes forward through the street shrouded in emulsion vapors. They soon arrive at a stranded outpost where they engage in combat with Lambert forces, including the formidable Gunkers. The squad faces a critical choice between advancing on the lower deck or the catwalk of the Thrashball Stadium. Opting for the upper levels provides a strategic cover fire and access to extra weaponry, while the lower level poses tougher battles. A cutscene reveals Cole's Thrashball history as a bomb is detonated to take down a massive stalk, temporarily halting the Lambert onslaught. Once the stalk is destroyed, Cole and his squad are met with a fresh wave of Lambert and Gunkers. They must navigate zip lines to overcome obstacles while battling drudges and Gunkers amidst various Lambert threats. The story unfolds as the squad encounters a bridge held by the Locust, engaging in a fierce combat against savage grenadiers, boomers, and other foes. The Leviathan's assault on the bridge forces a choice between the lower deck and the catwalk to continue their mission. The climatic battle features Locust artillery, tickers, gas barges, ultimately leading to the bridge's destruction and a plunge into the sea below.
I suppose you want me to say I've always loved you. Oh, but I don't. I really, really don't.
And well, that's the first act done and dusted. Let's start with how this act sets the tone that humanity is very much on the brink of extinction. The coalition of ordered governments is no more, which means Anya is out of a job and explains why she takes more of a boots on the ground role this time around. We are also introduced to new characters such as Sam, who can match Baird's trash talk, which results in some great dialogue between the two. Clay, who is a new Carmine, who is the polar opposite to Ben from the last game. I mean, just look at this absolute unit. And we have Jace, who, yes, technically he is in Gears 2, but this is more like his first full proper appearance. The fact that we go through at least half of the first act without even seeing any Locusts shows that they are also in a very desperate situation after being flooded from the previous game. Also, I really like the look of the Locust in this game. They look less subterranean in appearance, which shows that they have adapted to living on the surface, at least to some extent. Also, getting to play as Cole is a nice touch, which does show some depth to his character that he honestly really needed to be more than just the funny, loud ex-pro sports player. All in all, Act 1 is a fantastic start to the game. I really like how it starts on the ship and it shows that there's nothing left on the planet and like just war has just completely destroyed everything. But anyway, on to Act 2. With Cole and his team narrowly escaping the wreck, finding themselves without most of their weapons save for a single pistol, this forces them to move forward with extreme caution. When they begin to encounter wild tickers, the squad must act swiftly to eliminate them before they can devour the few remaining weapons. After dispatching the tickers, they scavenge any weapons left behind and continue their journey, only to be confronted by the looming threat of savage drones. The tension escalates as the narrative shifts from Cole back to Marcus, who is caught in a fierce battle against a powerful savage locust stronghold. I should also make a note here that, by the way, the locusts in this game are called savage locust because they have lost their home after the events of Gears 2, so keep that in mind going forward. As Marcus fights on, savage boomers unleash their diggers, requiring immediate action to prevent further destruction. The chaos is amplified by savage drones perched on bridges above. The unyielding skirmish leads Marcus to face a siege beast sent to obliterate the remnants of the Sovereign. Yeah, another little note here, the Sovereign is the name of the ship. I can't remember if I said that earlier or not. Anyway, by taking out the Siege Beast crew and turning its own weaponry against its allies, Marcus clears the area only to encounter a Broomwork, which he must defeat using the Siege Beast's formidable firepower. After the battle, Marcus embarks to locate Anya and Jace amid the relentless onslaught of attacks. A crucial cutscene then unfolds, showcasing Prescott succumbing to his injuries and the resurgence of the savage Locust forces. Marcus and his team are faced with the renewed menace. Suddenly, another Broomwork emerges and Marcus must focus his firepower on the Broomwork's chain gun arms in order to defeat it. Once the Broomwork is killed, we then get a cutscene that emphasizes that Adam Phoenix is still alive and the urgency to reach Anvil Gate to access Prescott's data disk.
Fucking Prescott, god damn him!
The chapter continues with a cutscene depicting a downed barge being picked apart by wild tickers who scurry away as the squad approaches. Spotting another drifting barge, Marcus then instructs the squad that they intend to pursue it in order to capture it so they can travel to Anvil Gate a lot quicker. As the squad steps into a dimly lit cave, they narrowly avoid a cave-in and stumble across cages filled with charred human remains.
What's in those cages? It's a keep out sign. Well, it almost worked.
Spotting several gas barges moving northward, they decide to follow, only to be confronted by a savage corpser bursting from the earth. This smaller version of the corpser is dangerous with its sharp claws, but by utilizing nearby debris to obstruct its advance and striking it from behind, the squad can secure a victory. Eventually, a cutscene reveals how the Locusts have adapted to the Deadlands, establishing a new stronghold. The squad's mission now focuses on sieging the barge, which brings them into conflict with savage grenadiers and sentries. As Delta Squad advances, they come across several barges and Queen Mira and her Tempest joining forces with the Reavers. The arrival of Queen Mira sparks a fierce confrontation featuring Shriekers, Palace Guards, and a Digger Boomer. Continuing their journey, the squad takes an elevator to a landing tower where they are met with the renewed assaults from gas barges and reavers. To overcome these challenges, they must strategically utilize the turrets and ammunition at their disposal. The Tempest launches an attack on the squad's hijacked barge, resulting in a crash landing in open plains.
Baird, any way we can slow this thing down? Oh, it'll slow right down when we crash.
After the chaos settles, Colonel Hoffman and his gears make their entrance, with Marcus alerting him to a looming danger. The chapter wraps up with Marcus, Baird, and Dizzy gear up for their next stage of their mission, equipped with fresh supplies and determined to press on with their battle against Locust forces. Now, personally, I enjoyed the Corpser fight, and I do believe it's superior to the Corpser fight in the first game. However, I must mention that this fight did have a bug for me where I couldn't progress it after the Corpser lost all of its eyes. I don't recall that happening way back in the day, but it happened this time. And I can't help but feel that Dizzy should have died in the second game in his battle against Scourge. Granted, at the time, he did have Ty with him to help him in his fight against Scourge, and Dizzy does play a much more important role in this game, but still, him surviving against Scourge is just a bit far-fetched, at least from my view. Let me know what you guys think about that. In the previous act, I mentioned how the Locusts have been able to adapt to the surface. Well, this act solidifies it, while also continuing to establish the Lambert that are the new primary threat. It also being more of a desert-focused area was something I did appreciate, as this is something we hadn't seen in any of the Gears games yet. But now with all of that, it's time to move on. This act kicks off by throwing the player into a pivotal clash at Anvil Gate. Triggered by a crash landing orchestrated by Queen Mira, the narrative unfolds as Colonel Hoffman comes to the rescue, bringing the player character back to the fort besieged by the unyielding Locust forces. Right from the beginning, the atmosphere is charged with tension as the player must gear up for the looming attack by collecting weapons and supplies that are strategically scattered around the initial area. As the skirmish erupts, the player finds themselves in the thick of a frenzied battle against relentless waves of savage grenadiers, joined by reavers and grinders. The unyielding onslaught of the Locusts who attempt to breach the fortifications with shotguns in hand heightens the urgency of the situation. The emergence of a siege beast marks a critical moment, compelling the player to either execute a tactical retreat or face inevitable doom. Nearby, the discovery of a one-shot, a formidable weapon, provides a flicker of hope, hinting at its crucial role in the fierce combat to come. As the clash reaches its climax with the last wave of Locust boomers, the scene transitions seamlessly into a cutscene that enriches the lore and story. A conversation unfolds between Hoffman and Marcus, focusing on Adam Phoenix and his formidable weapon, setting the stage for the upcoming mission. Players are faced with the pivotal decision to either rescue Sam and Anya or to provide cover for the rescue team. The choice carries weight, significantly impacting the gameplay experience, with the recommendation for solo players to defend the fort for a smoother progression. The storyline diverges based on the player's selection. Choosing to rescue Sam and Anya catapults the player into a thrilling chase where they must evade a car hurled by Lambert Berserker. The segment is charged with tension as the players navigate the perilous path back to the fort gates while avoiding the Berserker's wrath. On the other hand, opting to defend the fort presents a unique set of challenges, requiring the players to distract the Berserker and fend off the Lambert drones attempting to breach the defenses. No matter what choice you make, the narrative ultimately converges with the Hammer of Dawn is unleashed upon the Lambert Berserker. Yet the Berserker withstands the initial assault, leading to an intense final showdown where players must strategically provoke and damage the creature to target its emulsion core. The structure of the battle, characterized by the Berserker's escalating aggression and growing environmental dangers, climaxes in a thrilling conclusion. There, done? Following this, a cutscene provides a moment of calm before the story propels players into the next chapter, where Marcus and the team must go and set out on a mission to secure reinforcements and locate a submarine. The next chapter shifts to a settling and harrowing vehicle-based sequence where the player must use a Vulcan cannon to fend off Reavers while navigating treacherous emulsion fields. The tension is heightened by the need to quickly eliminate obstacles such as Reavers and emulsion pipelines to avoid catastrophic crashes. The section of the narrative is characterized by a relentless pace as the player's vehicle is besieged by Locust forces, including corpses and Troika turrets. All of this which leads to a confrontation against a Brumak, culminating in a daring maneuver to decapitate the monstrous enemy. And it looks really awesome when you cut off its head, by the way.
Gotta hurt. Damn it! This rig's got more holes in it than my shorts.
So the storyline transitions to the desolate town of Mercy, where the player is immediately struck by the eerie silence and ominous sight of char in the distance. The discovery of explosives rigged to an emulsion pipeline introduces a new layer of tension as the player must disable these devices while pursuing a stranded through the town sewers. The pursuit unfortunately leads to a grim revelation as players encounters Lambert-infected humans known as Formers, adding a tragic dimension to the narrative. The ensuring battles against the Formers, coupled with the dark, claustrophobic setting of the sewers, creates a palpable sense of dread and urgency. As the player emerges from the sewers, the story returns to the surface where they must fend off waves of Formers in the town center. The Stranded's futile attempts to aid the player only to be killed by the very enemies they were trying to defend against further emphasizes the hopelessness of the situation. The chapter concludes with an emotionally charged cutscene in which Dom places Maria's necklace on her parents' tombstone, adding an emotional depth to the ongoing conflict. The final stages of the narrative arc involve a desperate defense against both Locust and Lambert forces. The appearance of Lambert stalks and the relentless assault by savage boomers and drones push the player to the limits. The combination of this close quarter combat and the need to fend off enemies from all sides creates an atmosphere of chaos and desperation. The climax of this chapter is marked by Dom's heroic sacrifice, a moment that perfectly summarizes the themes of loss and camaraderie that encapsulates the Gears of War series. I am not exaggerating when I say that Dom's death might be one of the most heart-ripping deaths in all of gaming history. The way the whole section plays out is just magnificent. I have a full video dedicated to Dom's death that you can go and check out after this one to see just how intense it actually is. And yes, Dom's death is the standout moment of this whole chapter and this whole act. However, this act does offer a lot, from holding off a massive Locust attack and a battle against the Lambert Berserker. This is the first time we have fought a Berserker since the first game. Granted, it is a Lambert Berserker, but still a Berserker. However, this Berserker, I feel, doesn't live up to the fight from the first game, and that comes back to the first game having more of a horror theme, which fits perfectly with Berserkers. It's not that the Lambert Berserker fight is bad, far from it actually, but I really should mention that when I was doing a live stream playthrough of Gears of War 3, when it came to the Berserker fight here, I had crazy frame rate issues. Now, I do not know if that was the way I was playing the game or the fact that I was streaming it, but this section became like terrible to fucking play, like outright terrible. Also, this act introduced the fact that humans can also turn Lambert, which only ups the already incredibly high stakes to find Adam Phoenix or humanity is doomed. It just seems like humanity is just doomed from every direction, whether it be from Lambert, which can now infect humans, the Locust killing everybody, it's all bad. So this act really pushes the narrative forward in every possible way. Before we get into Act 4, I really want to give a thank you to Skirmitar. This whole project would have been impossible without him. So can we just take a moment to appreciate the effort that Skirmitar has put in this? Now, with all that said, back to Gears of War 3. The act opens in Char, a town devastated by the relentless strikes of the Hammer of Dawn, showcasing the harsh realities of ongoing wars. As Delta Squad navigates the lifeless streets, Jace remarks on the haunting ash-covered bodies, remnants of those who once lived there, establishing a grim atmosphere for this chapter. As the squad delves further into Char, they suddenly lose communication with Dizzy, amplifying the tension that's already in the air. Shortly after that, they come face to face with the Ash Man, a member of Aaron Griffin's Stranded, who has set a lethal trap for them. This encounter not only introduces Griffin's faction, but also underscores the desperation and ingenuity of the survivors in this ravaged landscape. The Ashman's traps, including a pair of wild retro lancers, illustrate the pervasive dangers lurking around throughout this game's entire universe. Chasing after the Ashman proves to be a treacherous endeavor, as Delta Squad encounters a series of traps and ambushes amid at hindering their advance. They are drawn into a room brimming with valuable weapons, compelling them to make a critical choice about their gear. The Ashman's strategies, such as unleashing a cart with a lit propane tank or crafting traps to mimic cries for help, highlight the cleverness and brutality necessary for survival in this harsh world. As Delta Squad presses on with their mission, they stumble upon polyps emerging from the remnants of a collapsed structure, a stark reminder of the constant danger posed by the Lambert. Jace takes note of the Ashman's unique ability to contain these creatures, emphasizing how the conflict is evolving as the Lambert grow into more and more menacing adversaries. When they finally arrive at Aaron Griffin's hideout, the Stranded open fire on Delta Squad, creating a charged standoff. Just as tensions peak, a sudden Lambert assault forces both the Stranded and Delta Squad to unite against the shared threat. Once the Lambert are vanquished, the Ashman guides Marcus and his team to Griffin, who discloses that Dizzy has been taken captive. Griffin then proposes a bargain. If Marcus and Delta Squad can recover a lost shipment of emulsion from a nearby town, Dizzy will be freed. This exchange helps to showcase the standoffish nature that plagues this world and its relationships among the various factions in the game, on the human side of things that is. Delta Squad's quest to secure the emulsion kicks off just outside Griffin's primary hideout. The surroundings are fraught with hazards, including cars that topple over when they approach, injecting an element of surprise into the squad's expedition. As they move forward, they face yet another Lambert onslaught, featuring a chaotic mix of drudges, drones, and wretches. The clash is fierce, but once the final Lambert falls, the squad presses on with their objective. As Delta Squad pushes deeper, they must maneuver through a series of devastated landscapes, each presenting unique obstacles. At one point, the ground unexpectedly collapses beneath them, leading to a cutscene where they must sprint to safety. This sudden peril helps underscore the game's overarching theme of survival and hostile environments. As they delve further into their mission, the squad encounters additional Lambert foes, along with concealed weapons that can provide vital for the challenges that lie ahead. The next stage of this mission leads Delta Squad to a towering facility where emulsion is manufactured. Marcus opts to take the elevators for their ascent, but things take a turn for the worse when a horde of formers launch an assault. The formers flood through multiple openings, overwhelming the squad and plunging them into a frenzied and cramped skirmish. When the elevators finally arrive, the squad is met with yet another obstacle. They must shove a vehicle off a makeshift lift to proceed onward. Upon reaching the tower's summit, Delta Squad discovers the area is deserted, with evidence suggesting that the garrison has either perished or transformed into formers. As they navigate through the tower, they stumble upon a cable car meant for emulsion shipment, but it's stuck due to a safety break. To free the break, the squad must delve deeper into the tower while simultaneously defending against the unyielding formers. The stake raised as gas barges launching attacks from both flanks, compelling Delta Squad to engage in a brutal confrontation with Mira's Locust forces to reach Dizzy and Griffin.
Okay, Griffin, we got your goddamn fuel. We're done.
The story then moves to Delta Squad's operation at the Endeavour Naval Shipyard, where their objective is to secure a submarine for their journey to Azura. The shipyard is fortified with Locust forces featuring palace guards, boomers, and shriekers, making the mission a formidable challenge for the team. While searching for an appropriate submarine, they confront a variety of foes, such as giant centipedes and snipers they must overcome in order to advance. This mission represents a critical decision whether to collect fuel for a rotor or for the submarine, with each option bringing its own unique hurdles. Regardless of the squad's choice, they will face relentless waves of Locust adversaries, including palace guards, blood mounts, and grenader elites, and the combat is just fierce in this whole section, demanding clever use of the surroundings and the weapons at the disposal to emerge victorious. As the submarine becomes operational, Delta Squad is tasked with defending it from relentless waves of enemies while preparing to leave the dockyards. The climatic battle is intense, with the squad confronting palace guards, armored Cantus, and a massive centipede. Once they vanquish the last foe, Delta Squad activates the flood valve, enabling the submarine to set sail for Azora. And the voyage to Azora starts off serene, but that peace is very quickly disrupted by an onslaught of manglers. The squad must confront these underwater menaces while Dizzy skillfully navigates the submarine through hazardous waters. The stakes also raise dramatically when a Leviathan strikes, compelling the squad to detonate cog mines and maneuver through the perilous waters. The confrontation with the Leviathan reaches a thrilling climax when the beast finds itself stuck beneath a massive rock arc. Delta Squad faces the daunting task of bringing the arc down to eliminate the Leviathan, clearing the way ahead.
Oh, wait. Damn. For a minute there, I thought we were going to end up like the rest of them shipwrecks.
Yet, their challenges are only just beginning. The submarine is swiftly swept up into a fierce current, and cog missiles lock onto their position. The squad must neutralize these imminent threats before they make their way to Azora. Alright, I'm gonna say it. I don't like the submarine level. This is probably my least favorite on-rails section in the whole trilogy. Not even just the whole game, the whole trilogy. I also don't like using the loader for the sub-base section, and yes, the act is my least favorite of the whole game. However, I do like the start of the act at Shah. Seeing the effect of the Hammer of Dawn strikes has always been something that really interests me in Gears of War lore, as well as seeing more of the Stranded interacting with the cog and just how much they despise the cog. The Ashman is also a clever idea for a Stranded to implement. However, the character of Griffin is just so meh to me, and him being voiced by Ice-T doesn't help, as it just really strikes out as, well, it's Ice-T.
Got some nerve coming around here asking for favors, motherfuckers.
One more positive thing about this act is seeing more emotional side of Marcus, both in sadness and anger. Works really well in showing that Dom's death and the death of everyone else during this war is really weighing heavily on him. And because these moments, particularly for Marcus, are few and far between, it's not constant crying or anger issues like Kylo Ren or anything like that. He's normally calm and collected, so when he does have an outburst of emotion, it really hits a hell of a lot harder. And this example of his freak out at Griffin, it's one of the best ones in the whole series.
I just lost my fucking brother, all right? You hear that? My brother! You and your tower and all this fucking emulsion can go to hell!
And now, with all of that said, it brings us to the final act of both Gears of War 3 and the final act of the Gears of War trilogy. The first chapter of the final act opens with a foreboding atmosphere as Delta Squad steps off their transport, met by a grim scene of a barren landscape strewn by the remains of those who once inhabited the island. An unsettling quiet hangs in the air, occasionally broken by sudden skirmishes with Locust forces, particularly the palace guards wielding torque bows and lances. As the squad cautiously navigates the eastern side of the docking area, the ground is littered with weapons, a testament to the fierce confrontation that have unfolded. Tension mounts as they approach the train station, where they encounter a mix of palace guards and wretches. The arrival of a train injects a new element into the fray, leading to a strategic explosion aimed at the train's fuel tank, which ignites chaos on the battlefield. As the situation intensifies, Adam Phoenix, monitoring Delta Squad via the facility's surveillance, urges them to secure a Silverback, an armored exoskeleton brimming with heavy artillery. This recommendation highlights the escalating challenges they face as the squad's journey is punctured by fierce clashes, starting with an ambush from palace guards who drop a significant cache of ammunition, compelling the squad to swiftly eliminate the threat in advance. The emergence of a Reaver, a heavily armored Locust creature, marks a new level of danger, but with the Silverback's overwhelming firepower, the squad successfully overcomes it, illustrating a pivotal shift in the balance of power in the favor of humanity.
Humans are back, asshole.
As Delta Squad pushes deeper into the Locust-infested territories, they're confronted with a myriad of challenges, such as obstructed routes and intense enemy fire, demanding careful planning and tactical responses. The Locust forces, unyielding in their defense, unleash mortars and boomers in a bid to stop the squad's progress, players must skillfully navigate a succession of increasingly difficult terrains, from wide open fields bombarded by mortar strikes to tight corridors swarming with wretches and boomers. Each confrontation tests the squad's endurance and their capability to adjust to the dynamic battlefield. This tension escalates as Delta Squad re-enters the train station, where they engage in a fierce battle against a Cantus and a group of palace guards. This chapter unfolds at a breakneck pace, with the squad's momentum abruptly interrupted by an unexpected arrival of a train, compelling them to swiftly adapt to avoid being crushed while simultaneously fending off enemy attacks. As the team ventures further into the facility, they encounter escalating resistance from Locust forces, who desperately cut the power in an effort to once again slow down or stop Delta Squad's progress. The squad must maneuver through a maze of corridors, some leading to dead ends while others direct them towards a service ladder that can provide an escape. Danger lurks at every corner, with flame grenaders and wretches launching ambushes, challenging the squad's vigilance and adaptability in its tight confines. The climax of this chapter unfolds as Delta Squad arrives at the Maelstrom facility, where the battle's intensity reaches its zenith. After a brief moment to regroup, they find themselves facing armored Cantus and a swarm of palace guards intent on overwhelming them. The squad's determination is put to the test as they fight their way to the generator room, where they must disable 3 generators to deactivate the Maelstrom, a key element in the Locust defense strategy. As the squads work to disable the generators, the story takes a thrilling twist when they discover that the Maelstrom remains active. Adam Phoenix deduces that a backup power source is in play, leading the squad to shut off the cooling valves in a bid to trigger a meltdown. The ensuing conflict becomes a frenetic race against time, with palace guards and grinders trying to stop their mission. The tension escalates as the squad hurries to escape the facility before it detonates, a sequence that emphasizes the high stakes and relentless pace of this blood-rushing final act. The chapter shifts following the devastation of the Maelstrom, highlighted by a cutscene that unveils the arrival of the Gorasani reinforcements, coupled with the heartbreaking news being passed on to Cole and Baird of Dom's unfortunate demise.
Dom didn't make it. Oh, fuck no. Somebody's gonna pay. Somebody's gonna fucking pay!
This moment of contemplation is fleeting as Delta Squad must press forward towards the Pinnacle Tower, now bolstered by a KR-06 providing crucial air support. Their trek along the cliffside is fraught with intense skirmishes against wretches, palace guards, and a formidable siege beast, an adversary that poses a significant threat with its heavy artillery. The withdrawal of air support heightens the stakes, compelling the squad to innovate their strategies and depend on their resourcefulness and firepower to combat the desperate Locust forces. As they near the Acanthus train station, the squad is met with a chilling scene: the lifeless bodies of scientists hanging from a tree, a stark testament to the Locust savagery. Adam Phoenix's voice, tinged with resignation, reflects on his grim reality that he is the only human the Locust deemed necessary to keep alive, adding profound emotional depth to the squad's mission. Their journey is punctured by a series of brutal encounters, including a showdown with an armored Cantus and the strategic use of a siege beast to obliterate the dam, illustrating the vast scale and ferocity of this ongoing conflict. The concluding moments of this chapter unfold with the towering confines of the Pinnacle Tower, where Delta Squad confronts their most formidable challenge to date. Under the command of Queen Mira, the Locust forces, bolstered by a Tempest, launch a fierce and desperate defense. The battle becomes a true test of resilience as the squad maneuvers through the perilous terrain of the tower while dodging the Tempest's lethal fire breath. And this is where Gears of War 3 reaches its climax, with Marcus Phoenix landing a killing blow on Queen Mira with Dom's knife, avenging his fallen allies and marking a pivotal moment at the end of the Locust War.
Feel that? That's from Dom. And everyone else you killed, you bitch.
The emotional impact of the chapter's conclusion resonates deeply as the emulsion countermeasure weapons activates, annihilating the remaining Locust and Lambert. The price of victory is very heavy, with Marcus mourning the loss of both his father and his closest friend Dom. The chapter and the act close on a bittersweet note of triumph, hinting at a hopeful future while acknowledging the lasting scars of war. The final act of Gears of War 3 beautifully encapsulates the themes of sacrifice, loss, and unwavering hope for a brighter tomorrow, even when faced with insurmountable challenges. In this final scene set against a breathtaking sunset, Marcus and Anya share a heartfelt embrace, offering a moment of comfort amid the chaos.
What's left, Anya? What have we got left now?
Tomorrow, Marcus. We finally got a tomorrow.
And there we go. That is the end of the Gears of War trilogy. The first thing I want to mention is the way Marcus drops his weapon and takes off his armor and bandana really does signify the ending of the whole story and leave us on a small bit of optimism for the future. Even showing Clayton Carmine surviving was a nice change to the Carmine curse. And while it does seem like a very solid conclusion and one which I have always enjoyed, especially when I was a teenager, for the sake of this video, I decided to go look at some old reviews and forums from when the game first released, and I discovered that back then the ending was a bit controversial, and many felt it didn't conclude some story threads, with the main example of being, why does Queen Mira look like a human? Now that is answered in outside media, but in what is supposed to be the conclusion, we get questions that shouldn't go unanswered. Another example is this one here.
Okay, I really need to know what Mira was yapping about. She knew your dad before E-Day? How? I mean, she looks human. Did she join the Locust Country Club for shits and giggles or something?
Why Gears of War 3 doesn't answer these types of things, I really don't know. And when you consider that this game was written by the great Karen Travis, and when you compare it to Gears 2, which expanded the lore so much, I must admit, Gears 3 falls short in compared to Gears of War 2 in terms of storytelling and focused more on being a conclusion. Now, some of the other critiques that I found to be prominent that I do not agree with is this one first of all. The Queen's death wasn't violent enough. Okay, yes, I think it's fair to expect a more punishing death, to say the least. However, I think they made the right choice to sacrifice the brutality that is expected in a Gears of War game for a more intimate and personal death scene, just up close, looking her in the eyes, and the intent in the actions of Marcus are what makes this death scene work so well for me. He doesn't yell at her, he talks very firmly. He is 100% committed to killing this bitch. The other prominent critique I found was every character is just depressed the whole game. What? This game is the conclusion to a 17-year war with the Locust, and humanity is on the very brink of extinction. So those 17 years and all the events that happened in those 17 years, including the two previous games, I'd say it's fair that the characters would be maybe just a wee little bit sad. It's not like they're constantly crying like it's a CW show. Again, this ties in with these more hardcore depressing moments. Maria's death, Dom's death. When the characters in these games show genuine sadness, it hits so much harder because we're not bombarded with constant tears, complaining and crying, which is why it just works so much better. Now, Gears of War 3 is still my personal favorite of the Gears trilogy. The gameplay is at its peak in this entry. I sunk ungodly hours into this game as a teenager, playing Horde mode, Beast mode, running multiplayer for hours on end. And while there is issues leaving story threads unanswered, I still believe the conclusion is a good ending point for this series. Picking up Gears of War 3 for the first time in so many years was an absolute blast, and it does offer the most replayability, at least in my opinion, of the three games. However, taking a deeper look at its story, it's obvious that Gears of War 2 is the superior campaign. It has been absolutely great to work on these Gears of War videos, and replaying the games on stream as well for the first time in just way too long. It has been truly a magnificent thing to do. And with Gears E-Day on the horizon, the optimist in me is hoping for it to be returned to its previous glory. But if recent history is an indicator, that is definitely a long shot.
Screw your order. This isn't about you, it's about me.
And speaking of recent history in the Gears franchise, I said in the first Gears of War video that I would consider making videos and doing playthroughs of those newer games, and I do stand by that if the demand is there. I will do it. So let me know if that's something you would like. Again, I really want to thank every single one of you for your support in the creation of these videos and watching these videos. I know Skirmitar really appreciates it, and I know he wants to thank you for watching as well. And I really want to thank Skirmitar for the editing. He's done such a fantastic job. Now, if you did enjoy any of these Gears of War videos, let us know in the comments section by hitting the like button, share it out on social media, let people know that these are out there, and let us know that you really enjoyed watching them. And with all that good stuff, I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so very much, everybody.